This is an apple, and if I were to take a bite, the sweetness, the crunch, the brief, satisfying resolution would occur. So if the first bite was so good, why would I want to take a second bite? At first glance, that question sounds silly. It wouldn't make sense if each time you or me ate food, we would feel satiated after one bite. And what if I told you by trying to answer this silly question, it will change your outlook on life forever? This brings us back to the apple and the paradox that comes with it. If I take a bite, the need is met, the craving is satisfied, and logically, the transaction was complete. Yet moments later, the initial brilliance fades, the impulse to return, to pursue the satisfaction returns again, often more urgently than before. The structural problem of human life is this: the system that drives you to want is physically different from the system that allows you to enjoy. And one of those systems is rigged to infinity. The result is the paradox of satiation. Enough is not a feeling you can sustain. It is a chemical event your brain is structured to immediately delete. For decades, psychologists relied on a simple model of happiness. But modern neuroscience offers us a more precise and disturbing explanation to this constant dissatisfaction. The research by the neuroscientist Kent Bridge uncovered a fundamental split in the brain. He found that wanting and liking are controlled by two entirely different neural systems. This discovery changes the simplistic idea that pleasure and motivation are the same thing. Liking is fragile. It uses an opioid system and endocannabinoids. It is metabolically expensive for the brain to maintain and creates a very temporary state of bliss. It is the immediate fleeting reward. Wanting is robust. It is driven by dopamine. Crucially, dopamine is not a pleasure molecule. It is a molecule of inactive salience. Its only job is to compel an action, to assign a magnetic urgency to a goal. Look at this data. The chemical spike happens during the anticipation of the pursuit, not the acquisition. The moment the goal is achieved, the wanting system shuts down. The phenomenon is known as the reward prediction error. The brain registers that the reward is no longer predicted and moves on. This creates a permanent biological gap. We are wired to pursue goals with intense chemical motivation, but the machinery for enjoying the result is weak and fleeting. Evolution prioritized survival, which required constant motion over contentment. You are biologically structured to pursue an infinite number of goals that will only ever deliver a finite, temporary sense of enjoyment. Some of us operate under the assumption that accumulating resources creates a linear increase in well-being. But the data contradicts this. We see the law of diminishing margin utility in action. The first significant boost to life satisfaction comes from removing pain. Examples being clearing high-interest debt or securing basic safety. This removes negative utility. Everything accumulated after provides only minimum margin utility. Furthermore, we aren't even rational about what makes a good life. Our retrospective judgment is fatally flawed. Consider the cold water experiment by Daniel Kahneman. Participants endured two scenarios of pain. Scenario A, 60 seconds of freezing water, or Scenario B, 60 seconds of freezing water followed by 30 seconds of slightly less freezing water. Logic dictates that Scenario A is better. It is less of total suffering, yet the vast majority of people chose to repeat Scenario B. Why? Because of the peak end rule. We don't judge our lives by the average quality of our days. We judge them by the narrative arc. We prefer a longer, more painful life if it has a better ending. This proves that we are not chasing happiness. We are chasing the compelling narrative. We will endure years of stress just for the narrative high of a promotion at the end, or we justify pain to live more. The scientific data confirms that the pursuit of completeness is a biological impossibility. This structural defect, however, is magnified and reinforced by the nature of our language and our ethics. This is where philosophy takes over. The first crucial step is to challenge the very words we use. Enough. For centuries, Western thought had treated concepts like truth, goodness, and happiness as solid objective standards. But Friedrich Nietzsche argued that these concepts are merely linguistic weapons, highly refined, context-dependent terms that gained meaning through cultural and evolutionary pressure, not through inherent universal reality. I would argue that completeness is the same. It is a linguistic invention, not a biological reality. We invented the word enough, and then we arbitrarily attached a materialistic condition to it. If I acquire X, I will have enough. But the brain is driven by the dopamine insensitive salience system. It is an engine for desire. You cannot satisfy a process. It exists in motion. You cannot fill a linguistic void, the made-up concept of completeness, with the material goods that your biology will immediately devalue. This is the ultimate self-deception. Furthermore, our language creates a rigid duality between the achieved state and the desired state. This duality is toxic. The brain, being purely mechanistic, cannot process the difference between a philosophical ideal and a biological trigger. By chasing the static, invented goal of enough, we are demanding that our biological process fundamentally ceases its nature. We are demanding the engine to stop running while the car is still on road. The void that you feel after success is not a sign of failure. It is the sound of the word enough, disintegrating against the gears of your own biological machine. The clash between the innate human need for meaning/completeness and the universe's structural indifference to that need is what Albert Camus defined as absurd. The absurd is not a choice. It is a structural precondition to existence. Camus gave us the most accurate metaphor for our existence. Sisyphus. We're condemned to an eternal, repetitive task. The rock that rolls down every time we reach the top. The desire is met, and the new desire immediately rolls down. This is the dynamic treadmill in its purest, most mythical form. Camus' philosophy asks, since the struggle is endless and the final reward is illusory, why not simply surrender? His answer is the only rational way out of this paradox. The mistake isn't that the rock rolls down. The mistake is in the belief that the goal was to keep the rock at the top and finally reach completeness. Camus argues that we find freedom in the acts of revolt. This is not a political revolt, but a philosophical revolt. A conscious decision to acknowledge the absurdity of endless pursuit and to act anyway. The moment Sisyphus walks back down to the mountain, he is conscious of his fate. In that conscious acceptance of endless struggle, he transcends it. The ultimate solution, then, is to reject the hedonic well-being, the pursuit of fleeting dopamine-fueled presence, and to embrace the eudaimonic well-being, the sense of purpose and meaning delivered from actively congruent with their own values. If your dopamine is found in the pursuit, then the only rational strategy is to choose a pursuit that is inherently valuable, one that justifies eternal, repetitive effort. The mastery of a skill, the depth of a relationship, the creation of something new. These are processes, not destinations. They are struggles worthy of your entire finite biological drive. We arrive at the final and unavoidable conclusion. Abandon the idea of happiness. Happiness is a phantom word. It is a linguistic weapon made up and reinforced for generations, gaslighting you into believing a permanent state of ecstasy is real and attainable. It exists only as a marker of a fleeting chemical pulse. Stop trying to capture and hold on a feeling that is fundamentally designed to escape. And what about contentment? It is nothing special. Contentment is simply the temporary conscious psychological state of choosing to accept a current set of needs and desires as manageable. It is as easy as choosing to believe in it. It is nothing more than a momentary ceasefire in the biological war for more. The goal, therefore, is not to achieve happiness or contentment. The goal is to acknowledge the biological Nietzschean truth. The struggle is all there is. The solution is to shift your focus from satiation to action. Choose a struggle that's worthy of your eternal effort. Don't chase the end of a struggle. Curate the struggle, because as long as you're alive, the rock will roll. You might as well enjoy the pushing. As someone who adopted this way of thinking, I've never looked back for a second. Thanks for watching.